Well, I have no idea how long this is gonna be. So hello everybody. I thought that today, since it is the All Hallows Eve, I thought that it would be cool if I did a special video just for Halloween, and I decided, you know what I'm gonna do? I am going to name my 10 favorite Halloween movies. Usually I at least have somewhat of an idea of what I want to talk about in terms of like the points of the movies that I review, but in this case, pretty much all I have written down is the names of the movies and what spot they're going in. So I'm going to be going pretty off the cuff in terms of my actual thoughts on the movies. So I guess we'll see how that turns out. Rules for this list: one movie per franchise because there are two movies in particular that would take up half the list if I didn't do that. No Halloween specials that aired on TV. They have to be full on movies, and no episodes of TV shows, obviously. Like, both of those could be their own list, and maybe I'll do that at some point. But for now, here are my top 10 favorite Halloween movies. Starting off at number 10, we have the 2014 film What We Do in the Shadows, the mockumentary about vampires that turned into a full on TV show. Now, I have to be honest, a lot of people always hype this up as this really great comedy and it's a really funny movie. And don't get me wrong, I obviously like it if it's on my list, but I always thought the show was much better. Like, there are quite a few moments in the movie that I think are kind of slow and don't really progress anything much, don't have many funny jokes. There are quite a few moments like that, in my opinion, but for the most part, I do think it is a pretty funny movie. I like the characters. I like this kind of world they set up of these underground vampires and werewolves in England. And I like the whole dynamic they set up with the familiars, which, again, I think these are things that are kind of done better in the TV show, but they're done good in the movie too. And I just really like the main characters, especially the main one played by Taika Waititi. I really like him in this. And Jermaine Clement's funny too. And I like their one human friend who's like just hangs out with them all the time. And there are some really funny moments in this, especially the when one of the vampires gets kicked out of the group. I found that's a really funny moment for me, and the whole introduction with them just sort of establishing how they live together in this one house. I thought that introductory scene was pretty funny. Not a lot to say about this one. I just think it's not quite as funny as a lot of other people make it out to be, but I still think it's a good, funny movie. And if you're a fan of like mockumentaries and British humor, definitely check it out. Number 9, we have Tucker and Dale versus Evil. Now, this might be stretching it a little bit, but it is still a horror comedy, so I think it qualifies. The easiest thing to say about this is that Tucker and Dale themselves are very likable characters, and I like following them throughout the film. And both Alan Tudyk and Tyler Sabine, I believe, is the one who played Dale. They both did a really good job, and I really liked them both, and I liked um, Dale's chemistry he has with the college girl that they rescue at one point. And of course, once it like turns into this very black comedy about all these college kids accidentally killing themselves in all these extremely gruesome ways, it's very funny when that happens. I will admit it loses a bit of its impact the second time around just because you do know what's coming at that point, but it is still very funny whenever it happens. And there are definitely some very funny scenes, particularly when it's just Tucker and Dale working off each other. And I will say any scene that's just about the college kids, like just them working off each other, is kind of whatever. And the third act, I'm not a huge fan of. Like, before it was kind of like a satire of these kinds of horror movies. Now it's basically turned into one of these kinds of horror movies, just a bit more comedy. But I don't know. It's still a really good movie, and I still really enjoy it. And I definitely try and check it out every Halloween. So be sure and check it out if you like horror comedies like this. Next up, we have Coraline. this is another film that's usually hyped up as this amazing stop motion film, and obviously, again, it's on the list. I like it, but I just always thought it was a little overrated. My biggest problem with it is probably just there are, again, some scenes that kind of drag a little, particularly when it's Coraline going to see her neighbors in the other dimension, or some of the scavenger hunt scenes at the end, or even like the second climax that they have where one of the characters comes to the real world from the other world, and I thought you didn't really need that. But for the most part, I think it's a solid film. It's like a good cautionary tale of like the whole grass is always greener on the other side kind of tales. And it does have some very good stop motion animation. And Coraline herself, I actually found her to be a rather enjoyable character. Like, I can understand how some would just see her as kind of like a bratty kid, but if you look at everything going on with these characters, they just moved to this new house, and it's clear that there was just some sort of traumatic accident that happened since the mom has her hand cast and they allude to a car accident. It's pretty clear that this family isn't usually like this. They're just in a very tense spot with everything going on. And they do show at the end that it is they do still clearly love each other and it's still a working family unit. And there are definitely some very funny moments, particularly with Coraline and her just sort of acting like a kid. Like she feels very real. Like this doesn't feel like adults writing for kids. She always feels like a very believable kid, and she's very much what I enjoy most about the film. She definitely is a very enjoyable character to watch. And like I said, there are just a few parts that drag on a bit, but outside of that, this is a really good Halloween stop motion film. I definitely try and watch it every year, and I'd say check it out if you like these kinds of stop motion Halloween films. Next up, this one might get me into some trouble just because people are shocked about which film in this franchise I'm choosing to go on the list. Next up is Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice. Yes, I actually prefer the sequel over the original. And I just like to point out right now, I like the original. I also try and watch that every Halloween. The only problem is that I just don't like Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis's characters. They aren't unlikable. It's just that they're very boring to me. And whenever it just focuses on them, I always found them to be pretty boring, and I always just sort of wait for the Deetzes to show up. I always found them to be far more entertaining, as well as the supernatural world. I always just wait for them to stumble across that, or to go back and meet with their caseworker, or to just talk with Beetlejuice, because obviously he's also very entertaining. And that's what this sequel does. It gives me pretty much more of what I enjoyed about the original while cutting out the boring stuff. It focuses more on the Deetzes, which I very much appreciate. I like Lydia's whole arc she has throughout this film. I found it very interesting what she's doing now as an adult. I found it believable. And I definitely found her whole arc throughout the film interesting, especially with her daughter who doesn't believe in ghosts. I found, and Jenna Ortega could isn't amazing, but she is still just entertaining enough that I enjoyed watching her as the daughter. And like Catherine O'Hara, obviously, like I love her in this. Like she is just. It feels like they took her personality and exaggerated a bit more, mostly because well, they wanted to make her a bit more like Moira from Schitt's Creek, but I appreciate that because I like Moira from Schitt's Creek and I love Catherine O'Hara in this. She's just so funny, just how over the top she is about everything. And yeah, and Beetlejuice and all of the other supernatural elements are great too. Like I really like Willem Dafoe as like this cop who used to be an actor. He was very entertaining. And Michael Keaton as Beetlejuice. It is like amazing how almost 30 years passed between the original and the new film, and he has not lost any energy at all. He's still just as energetic as he was in the original. And it's funny because he wasn't in the original much. I think it's about 15 minutes. And that's probably about the same amount of time he's in this one. Just they sort of space his scenes throughout the movie a bit more so it feels like he's in it more. But he's still in it just the right amount. He's still very entertaining, as well as all of the fun supernatural stuff they do. And I also liked the whole thing going on with Jenna Ortega in the third act. I thought that was very interesting without going into spoilers. It was definitely kind of a shock. Like, I'm sure some people probably saw it coming, but it was still pretty an interesting story, I think. In terms of any flaws with this movie, they bring in this character who's meant to be Beetlejuice's ex lover, and she didn't really do a lot. Like, you probably could have just written her out and not missed a ton. I guess it's to help motivate Beetlejuice to want to go back to the mortal world, but I still don't think she contributes that much to the story. And while the film does a good job of not relying on references to the original for the most part, all of a sudden in the third act, they kind of go overboard with it. Like, there's a wedding scene that's very similar to the wedding scene in the first one. There's a dance sequence that's very similar to the Deo sequence from the original. They even kind of resolve the main conflict in a way that's very similar to the original. And for the most part, this film was actually pretty good on standing on its own, but all of a sudden they have all these references and member berries to the first film at the end, which was kind of annoying. But still, I think this was a very entertaining and worthy sequel. I can kind of understand why someone wouldn't enjoy this as much as the original, especially if you thought the Deetzes were a bit much, but I really liked it, and I think this one kind of holds up better than the original, in my opinion, just because it gave me more of what I wanted from the original. Next up is the 2015 film Goosebumps. Now, in terms of my history with Goosebumps as a franchise, I have pretty much no history with this franchise because I never read the books, never watched the show. I haven't even like seen the new series that came out. I just for whatever reason when I was in middle school, I was like, "Hey, let's check out that Goosebumps movie." This is probably because let's be real, it's probably because I just like Jack Black, and I'm glad I did because I actually rather enjoyed this movie. I get that the main criticism a lot of people have with it is just it's not scary, especially for people who liked the original because they thought it was very like a scary kids show, and I get that, but like for me, what's entertaining about the new Goosebumps is because it feels like they're trying to do it more like a B movie. Like you have these very campy scenes with like the Yeti and all these other like creatures attacking the main characters. And you have the dummy who's very much like throughout the film he's just making all these crypt keeper type puns and jokes, which it's like they're not hilarious, but like they're still very entertaining. And Jack Black's doing this like Joker impression, which is kind of funny. And speaking of Jack Black, I actually think he's very good as R.L. Stein. Like, yeah, he's a bit over the top in terms of being like a loner grump type character, but I think he still pulls it off pretty well. And I like the arc he goes through in the film of learning to like people and like not want to cause them harm like he did when he was younger. And I liked the other human characters as well. I liked the his R.L. Stein's daughter. I thought she was like likable as like this love interest type character. I liked the main character played by Clay from 13 Reasons Why, and there is definitely he actually has a connection to Clay from 13 Reasons Why. If you've seen the later seasons of that show, and if you've seen this movie, you'll pick up on it. And yeah, I think that most of the acting is good. There are definitely some jokes, particularly from the side character Champ, that I don't think were hilarious, but for the most part, the humor works good enough. And there are just some very entertaining sequences involving all the monsters, and the animation on them isn't amazing. Like, it doesn't look real, but it looks good, if you know what I mean, if that makes any sense. And if I did have any other problems, it's just that this movie really wants to congratulate R.L. Stein. Like, I get it. Say they want to celebrate Goosebumps as a franchise, but they definitely over exaggerated a bit at points. Like when Clay from 13 Reasons Why calls the Goosebumps series kids' books, you have the best friend Champ going, "No, these are not kids' books. Kids' books put you to sleep. These keep you awake. They are scary." And it's like, okay, I get you want to sell these as like horror books, but like, come on, you don't have to have all these scenes of them just saying how great Goosebumps as a franchise is and how great of a writer R.L. Stein is. It does get a bit much at points, but still, I think this is like a fun kind of Halloween B movie that does have some sincere elements to it. Like, and they also do some things like there's this one kind of subplot that parodies something you usually see in these types of movies, like the mom in this, played by the girl Michael ends up with from The Office. I'm sorry, I'm blanking on her name at the moment. Holly, Holly from The Office. She recently lost her husband, and Clay, meaning Clay, also lost his father. And usually in these types of movies, there's like a new love interest introduced for the mom, for the parent to date, and it seems like they're gonna do that with this coach played by Dan Marino. But like, it's funny because every time that like the coach tries to like start up a romance, the mom either brushes him off or like says no, go away. Like it's actually kind of funny. Like I kind of think it was done on purpose, like kind of this parody of this sort of typical plot line you see in these types of movies with this type of character. It's not like done amazing. I just it's like a little thing that happens in the background. I think it's kind of funny to point out. So yeah, I think Goosebumps pretty good. The aunt character can also be a bit annoying with her. She's not really funny, but like like overall, I think as long as you can put up with some of the unfunny bits, I think you'll have a good time with this. Next up, we have Shaun of the Dead. Now, in terms of Edgar Wright's whole Cornetto trilogy, I know a lot of people think Hot Fuzz is the best. Hot Fuzz is definitely good, but I think Shaun of the Dead is easily the best one. Because I like Simon Pegg and Nick Frost in this movie. Like, they're definitely also good in the other Cornetto trilogy movies, but I kind of think they're at their best here. I think they have their best friendship dynamic here. I like all of the other friends. I think a lot of the jokes at the start of the whole zombie apocalypse with Simon Pegg not even noticing that a zombie apocalypse has happened is pretty funny. It actually also works as kind of an effective drama at points, especially in the second half when things start to get more dramatic. The action in this isn't, for the most part, isn't really that much to write home about, except for this one sequence at a bar with that's set to Queen, the "Don't Stop Me Now." I thought that scene was pretty well executed, and definitely like there's quite a few funny bits here, like that scene where they're debating which records they want for the end of the world is pretty funny while they're being attacked by zombies. They're just talking about records they like. I will say not all the drama works. Like there's this whole thing with Simon Pegg continuously getting into fights with his other roommate, Peter Serafinowicz, I believe, is the one who plays him. Like those aren't. I didn't really find those interesting. And the relationship stuff with his girlfriend isn't great, but it works just well enough, I think. And you definitely feel the friendship between Simon Pegg and Nick Frost in this. Not a whole lot to say about this. Just a good, funny zombie comedy. Probably, yeah. I would say in terms of like pure zombie comedies, like not much drama in it at all. I'd say this is probably the best one. There's another zombie movie that's coming up later, but I wouldn't really. It's like a comedy, but it's not in just a comedy. If you get what I'm saying. But we'll get to that later. But yeah, Shaun of the Dead, very funny movie, and has probably the best characters of the Cornetto trilogy. At number four, we have Wallace and Gromit: Curse of the Were Rabbit. Again, I this one might kind of be cheating because it's not really Halloween, but like I googled it. A lot of people do call it a Halloween movie since it satirizes a lot of elements of classic horror. So I'm gonna go ahead and count it because I do rather enjoy this one. It's not like my favorite Aardman film or anything, but it is still rather funny. Like Wallace and Gromit, they're not characters that I grew up with, but this is actually, I think, the first full Wallace and Gromit project I ever watched. I never even really watched their short films, but I definitely enjoyed them both here. I liked their dynamic. I thought Wallace could be very funny with his like very dim attitude, but he's not stupid. He's just he's not all up there. If you get what I'm saying, he's still an inventor. He can still invent all this cool stuff. And I definitely enjoyed the elements that like satirize horror, especially with like scenes like the were rabbit and the scene where the villain goes to talk to the priest. I definitely enjoyed that scene. Um, in terms of any complaints, the villain is all right. He definitely works best when he's working off of another character, and I think the female lead in this, played by Helena Bonham Carter, is kind of whatever, not much to her, and she's more just kind of like meant to serve as like a she sets up certain plot points pretty much. There's not much else to her, but she's they're both still fine. A lot of the stop motion in this is like not amazing, but like there are still some cool sequences, especially this one scene where Gromit's chasing the were rabbit with the truck in a tunnel. That was pretty cool. And yeah, there are definitely a lot of very funny moments. You just have to like go on YouTube and search up clips of this movie, and pretty much you'll guarantee to find some really funny stuff. Like, but obviously watch the full movie to like, get the whole context of it. Not like there are one or two jokes that don't work, like, but and like yeah, obviously if you want like good, like really good characters and deep drama, this ain't it. But like, if you just want to like watch a good cute cartoon that's like has some good British humor in it, then yeah, this is definitely one to watch. Next up, we have Monster House. This one is like definite. I kind of grew up with it, but this one was more like when I was a teenager. But I definitely feel like it's been long. I've watched it for long enough that I could say I kind of grew up with it. And yeah, I rather enjoy this one. Obviously, we're like at number three, and it's like here we are. This is one of the um not stop motion, motion capture. This is one of the films that I think does it the best because I actually think like I don't hate motion capture. I like Polar Express and actually like Robert Zemeckis' A Christmas Carol, but I will admit if you don't like the style of it's like looks very realistic but it's just animated, then I kind of get that. But this film does it the best because it has a very cartoony style in terms of its characters. Like you're never gonna look at these characters and think, "Oh yeah, they're real." They're trying to look real, but they still move like real people, and the backgrounds look like not super realistic, but realistic enough that you can tell they're trying to look more real. And yeah, I think that actually adds to kind of the tone that the movie is going for. Like it's definitely a horror comedy. There's a lot of comedy here, and a lot of it works. Some of it doesn't, but a lot of it definitely works. I really like the cop characters; they're very funny. I just as a character, I really like Steve Buscemi as Mr. Nevercracker. Like he definitely starts the film one way, but by the end of it, you see this whole new side to him, and I really like that. The kids in this, I think, are really good. Not like amazing, but like as like protagonists for this kind of movie, yeah, you do kind of want kids to be the star because it's like one of those movies like Goonies or Gremlins, like back then, where like it's not where like you, it's kind of more a plot where like it makes sense for kids to be at the center of it. And like I said, not every joke works. There are some characters who are just kind of whatever. Like the boyfriend character of the babysitter Bones is like he's not great, but like he works fine enough, I guess. I would probably say that there are some. Yeah. I remember what I was gonna say. I was like trying to think of what I wanted to say, but I remember now. Jenny, the main girl character, like she as a character, I like. I think she works well, and she definitely adds her own sort of character to the film. My problem is like the love triangle with her and DJ and Chowder. I didn't really care much for that. I think they can get DJ and Chowder can get kind of creepy at times with how much they're like trying to show they're into her, or like at points where they're just staring at her with a telescope. It's like, okay, this is a bit much. Like it never crosses the line to where they become unlikable, but there are definitely points where I'm like, okay, you two need to calm down. Like you're definitely being a bit weird about this. But and definitely an element of the film that really works. Like I said with like the whole kind of twist in the film revolves around Mr. Nevercracker's backstory, and yeah, that is really good. Like there are definitely twists and turns in this you won't see coming, and it has like a very interesting and kind of sweet backstory to it, but that becomes ultimately tragic, and that's definitely very interesting whenever like funny movies are also able to tell these very dramatic stories like this. and we'll get to another film like that in a bit. But yeah, overall, Monster House, like, yeah, if you don't find it funny, I can see how it wouldn't be your thing. But like, I think at the very least, you have to appreciate how it actually uses stop motion, no motion capture very well, especially with the more cartoony designs mixed with the realistic movement, making the whole vibe feel off, which is clearly intentional and it works with the film. And also just like the story that it tells and the places it's willing to go for a kids film, which this also has some very raunchy humor in it, which is I feel like this would probably get a PG-13 if it were released like closer to nowadays. But like I definitely enjoyed the film, and yeah, I say check it out if you watch a trailer and I think it looks interesting. Next up is Hotel Transylvania. I was a little surprised how high I ended up ranking this, but yeah, this is just a really good movie. This is probably one of the funniest Adam Sandler movies. Like, Adam Sandler, he has a very mixed bag in terms of comedy, but he really is, it's really funny here. Like, in the first 10 minutes or so, there's a bit of a reliance on, like, fart jokes and, like, kind of immature humor like that. And there's definitely points throughout the film where it feels like they're very much trying to be like, how you do, fellow kids, in terms of, like, some of the like slang and lingo they use or some of the pop culture references they make. But for the most part, it is a very funny movie, probably one of Adam Sandler's funniest. And like Adam Sandler as Dracula works really well. Like you can barely even tell it's him. Like if you didn't know it was him going in, I don't think you'd be able to tell. Pretty much all the cast here is actually really good. Andy Samberg's character Johnny could have easily been annoying with like how much he tries to be like a surfer dude type character, but he is still very likable, and I think a big part of that's Andy Samberg's performance. He knows just the right amount of energy to bring to this character, and I think he pulls it off great. And like I said, all the cast here is really good. They all, even like the small characters, bring just the right amount, just the right performance to make their character work and to make the jokes they tell work. And like this film is like it's clearly not very dramatic, but there's still like one dramatic scene in the film that I think works really well. And like I think it works because it doesn't bring the pace to a halt to like the tone to a halt too much. Like it's not like all of a sudden there's this very dramatic scene. Like they build up to it pretty well, and they actually do mix in like they're back to making jokes pretty soon after this whole dramatic backstory is told, but it works because that's just how the tone is, and that's just how the place these characters are at. Like it doesn't feel like it comes out of nowhere. And yeah, and there's actually like I actually do legit buy the relationship between Johnny and Dracula's daughter Mavis. Like it's not like it's some forced romance. Like it actually you do buy why they would like each other at the end. And yeah, and the animation in here is very good. Like I've heard some people complain that like it just looks too cartoony for a 3D movie, but I think in terms of like the designs and the animation, I think that the way the animation is done here works really well for the physical comedy and some of the more over the top moments. And and like heck, some of the visual gags and the way characters move in certain scenes are some of the can be some of the biggest laughs you get in this because it just looks so unique from anything else. Like you wouldn't really confuse the animation in this for many other movies, and I think that helps into making this stand on its own. So like yeah, this is like not some like if you want deep characters, you're not gonna get it. But if you just want a really funny Adam Sandler movie that has characters that you do rather enjoy, then yeah, I'd say go ahead and check this out. And now we're at number one. And if you saw the short that I recently posted, you would know number one, big shock, Paranorman. Paranorman is easily best Halloween movie I've ever seen. The stop motion animation, it's probably some of the best stop motion animation I've seen in any movie, and it definitely works for this movie for the creepy tone it's going for. But it's creepy, but it still manages to be really. This is still a really funny movie. Like pretty much all the jokes work for me here. Like I'm trying to think of any jokes I didn't laugh at. Can't really think of any because I laugh at pretty much every joke they do here. And there are even like some characters who are just here to like tell jokes, like Alvin the bully or the older brother, Mitch the older brother, and they are definitely insanely funny characters. Like I love whenever these characters show up. And the main character Norman, like I think this really works because I feel like it would have been really easy to just make him, oh, this goth loner character who doesn't really want to open up to others, but over the film he learns to. But like even at the start of the film, like we have these scenes of him being very friendly with the ghosts and he very quickly opens up to Neil being his friend, and yeah, I think that definitely works for a protagonist you want to root for. And and his performance also really helps sell it. Like you can definitely feel both the warmth he feels for people he likes and the coldness he feels when he's just sort of having to deal with something he doesn't like. And yeah, the story that this movie tells, like I'm legit shocked they got away with doing this for a kids movie, but like yeah, it already starts out in kind of an interesting place, but it definitely as the movie goes on and when we get to the twist in the third act, it gets crazy dramatic and it works. Like this movie is probably one of the best for balancing both a comedic and a dramatic tone that I've seen. And yeah, it just definitely all feels, even though it doesn't technically take place on Halloween, which is funny because I think when I first saw it when I was like 12, I kind of actually thought this took place on Halloween, but it doesn't. But it definitely all feels very Halloweeny with like all the gothic imagery everywhere and like the way the town's decorated. Like it basically is decorated like it celebrates Halloween all year round. And yeah, I just think this is a very funny movie that also manages to tell a very dramatic story. It looks great, characters are great. There's not like a ton to say about it. Just yeah, at least not going into spoilers. Like there's probably some stuff I could say if I went into spoilers, but like yeah, it's just best to watch the movie yourself. It definitely has some very relevant messages that I think can always kind of resonate with people. And yeah, I just really like it. I definitely recommend anybody check this out because I think you'll at least get something out of it. I think anybody could get something out of Paranorman. So those are my favorite Halloween movies. Hopefully that was at least somewhat interesting to watch. Maybe if there's enough demand for it, I'll make these kinds of videos for other holiday movies. Like I don't just celebrate Halloween. Like I'd also be interested in making like a Christmas movies type video if you're interested. There's enough interest in it. Maybe I'll do that. So why don't you go ahead and tell me what are your favorite Halloween movies? Let me know in the comments below, or let me know what you think of these movies that I listed. Is there one you actually don't think is that great? Tell me. Let me know what you think. Thank you very much for sitting here watching this. Be sure to subscribe to see more videos like this in the future. And on that note, I will see you next time. Happy Halloween.